Hi everyone, I'm Olivia. Let's talk books. If you can believe it, the end of the year is almost here. Sometimes it feels like the year has flown by, other times it feels like it hasn't. But with the end of the year comes one of my favorite book trends, which is everyone's 10 before the end. People are already starting to share theirs on Instagram, and I have actually shared mine as well. These are my 10 books that I want to finish before the end of the year, so let's get into them. And these almost finish up my physical TBR, but not quite. Whoa. I do still think I'll finish my TBR by the end of the year, but these are the 10 that I'm prioritizing. They've been high up on my TBR, and I finally need to get to them. Looking at all of these, I was able to categorize them into 3 different genre groups. I have frontlist fiction, frontlist nonfiction, and then backlist fiction. And if you're wondering what frontlist or backlist means that they were published this year. They're on the front list of what a publisher is publishing. And then the backlist is everything that's been published prior to this year. If you ever hear it specifically called an author's backlist, it just means their entire catalog of previous work. So let's get into these books. Here are my 10 before the end. For frontlist fiction, we have The Pretender by Jo Harkin, The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Kiran Desai, and Ordinary Saints by Niamh Mhaoileoin. I will also add, most of these books are pretty chunky novels. I don't know why I've done that to myself. I'm just gonna be working on my patience. The Pretender by Jo Harkin, which was kindly gifted to me by the publisher, is a funny saga set in Tudor England, where a peasant boy thinks that he's next in line for the throne and the rightful heir, and then the dealings of court life unfold from there. I've heard great things about it. I've been putting off reading it. This will definitely be finished by the end of the year. The Loneliness of Sonia and Sunny by Kiran Desai is currently shortlisted for the Booker Prize. We still have a few weeks until the winner is announced. I'm actually really pulling for this one to win because I think it would be so iconic for an author to go 2 for 2 for books that are published and then win the Booker Prize, because her other published work, The Inheritance of Loss, it won in 2006. So almost 20 years later, we finally have her sophomore novel. It just came out at the end of September, and it's currently sitting at 670 pages, which you really wouldn't think looking at it, but the pages are pretty thin. This is a story about the titular characters, Sonia and Sunny. I also don't think it's a stretch to say they experience some loneliness, but I have heard that it's just a very sweeping, immersive novel about these 2 characters and the people in their lives. We do hop from point of view to point of view, which I don't mind, but it is blurbed by some incredible authors on the back, including my favorite Anne Patchett. This is another one I will definitely be getting to by the end of the year. I'm part of the Booker of the Month book club, and this is actually our November selection. And then we have Ordinary Saints. This one is about a queer Irish woman living in London when her brother passes away, and her brother might be made into a saint. This story really reckons with her faith, her queer identity, and the grief of losing her brother. I've heard it's a good mix of humorous and heartfelt. This one is still very much under the radar because it's not published in America yet. I actually don't know if it'll get published in America, but my UK friends that have picked this up have had really good things to say about it. And if you're in the US wondering how I got these books from the UK, I just use Blackwell's. They have free shipping to the US, but since I am pretty selective about the books that I buy, I only make one UK purchase a year. Next up, we have frontlist nonfiction. Both of these were honored on the National Book Awards long list for nonfiction. I read through the entire fiction long list, and my goal is to read the nonfiction shortlist. It's an ambitious goal, but we'll see what happens. One of these made the shortlist, one of them didn't, but I'm still gonna read both of them regardless. For the Sun After Long Nights by Nilo, Tabrizy, and Fatemeh, Jamalpour. They're 2 journalists documenting the woman life freedom movement in Iran. I'm Iranian American, so of course I was gonna read this. This is about the correspondence between the 2 journalists, one in Iran documenting the movement on the ground level, and the other documenting it from afar. On the inside it says, a moving exploration of the 2022 woman-led protests in Iran, as told through the interwoven stories of 2 Iranian journalists, my bread and butter. It's always nice to see an Iranian book get the recognition and nomination. I'm sad it didn't make the shortlist, but of the books that are on the shortlist, it was a pretty tough crowd. And then we have Black Moses, a saga of ambition and the fight for a black state by Gayle. This is about Edward McCabe, who is a black businessman in the South who argued for a black state, specifically in Oklahoma. He exhorted black people to move to Oklahoma to achieve their dreams of self-determination and land ownership. It sounds fantastic, and it was one that was on the long list that immediately grabbed my attention. So I'm really curious to see how this post-Civil War, I think it's pre-construction, but I'm super curious to see how his philosophy played out and what the reception was. And I'm actually hoping that both of these are 5 stars, or at least 4.5, but the nonfiction long list was super solid this year. Overall, I'm just excited for both of these. I'm actually excited for all of the books, but you get what I mean. Then for backlist fiction, we have Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle, which is translated from the Spanish. This is also my first Fitzcarraldo edition. This is published in America, but I wanted the traditional and classic blue cover. If you don't know, this publisher in the UK, all of their books have the same cover design. They're just published in one of 2 ways, depending on their genre. Fiction is blue with white. If this was nonfiction, it would be white with blue. In this novel, we follow 2 women who have different ideas on whether or not they want to have kids, and then it makes you question if you really wanted what you initially said you wanted. The woman who wants to have children has a complicated pregnancy, and the woman who doesn't want to have children, I don't know if she has a hysterectomy or what, but she gets herself medically sterilized so she can't have kids, and she befriends the neighbor's son and develops a bond with him. Very much the conversation of to have kids or not to have kids. I think it also challenges the regrets that might come with whatever someone chooses. This one's the smallest on this list, but it will certainly pack a punch. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I feel like I'm one of the only people who hasn't read this yet. It's about these children in a boarding school, but there are sci-fi elements as this takes place in the future. I don't know if people classify this as dystopian or near dystopian, but he's an iconic author. He won the Pulitzer Prize, he's won the Booker Prize, and I need to finally read this. The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. Though all of these books are popular, I think this is the most mainstream popular book. I mean, it was chosen for Reese's Book Club, but this one is about this sweeping love triangle. It really reminds me of Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall, which I read in the summer, and that was actually also a Reese's Book Club pick. I'm funny because of all the celebrity book clubs I've read from, I think hers is the one I read the least of, and then they're both books about love triangles. While I do think that there will be some similarities, I think this is another book that kind of makes you question your life's decisions. This was actually nominated for the Women's Prize too. Most of the books on this list are pretty serious and literary. I think this might be an emotional one to kind of break up the pacing of certain literary fiction. I don't know, sometimes you just need a good love story. I find myself being drawn to these books that rest in this gray area between genres. I don't think this is a romance, and I don't know if it would even fall under historical or literary. Maybe it's a blend of all three, but this seems like one that I can get easily immersed and wrapped up in. Then we have Trust by Hernan Diaz. This won the Pulitzer Prize in 2023 alongside Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. It was the first time there were two fiction winners, but this is about a Wall Street tycoon. He's rich, affluent, all the things. And then it looks at the dark side of the ways that they came into their fortune. And then it's told, I think, from 4 points of view that kind of make you wonder what really happened and makes you question the front-facing narrative, what this couple has presented to the world. At once an immersive story and a brilliant literary puzzle, Trust engages the reader in a quest for the truth while confronting the deceptions that often live at the heart of personal relationships, the reality warping force of capital, and the ease of which power can manipulate facts. It won the Pulitzer for a reason. I've heard some mixed reviews about it, but the people who love it, love it. It won back in 2023, feels all the more timely now. But this has been on my bookshelf for a little while. And also, did you just see Dua Lipa talk about how this book was the meet cute between her and her now fiance Callum Turner? I mean, we all know she has excellent book taste. Thank you, Dua Lipa, for putting this back in the zeitgeist. Well, not really, because it'll always be popular if you've won the Pulitzer. Anyways, the last book on this list is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Another chunky book to conquer. This is an epic family saga that follows 4 generations in Korea. It starts in the early 1900s. Just like Trust, it follows a century. This is a book that I had on my TBR of shame, which are the books that I'm ashamed that I haven't read yet. Again, this will be read by the end of this year. Richly told and profoundly moving, Pachinko is a story of love, sacrifice, ambition, and loyalty. This is a book I'm hoping will be 5 stars, but I could see maybe dipping down to 4.5 because I can be so picky and because it's so long, but we'll see. And there you have it. These are my 10 before the end. If you've read any of these, what did you think? And what are some of the books that you want to read by the end of the year? As always, I'm Olivia. Happy reading. I'll see you next time.